Hey there, I'm here to interrupt your regularly scheduled entertainment. Disclaimer, this advice is all based on my own personal experiences as an Artist Alley vendor. This advice is subjective, and while some things may work for me, they may not work for you. Feel free to leave your own advice in the comments if you like. I am not sponsored or affiliated with any of the companies or products mentioned within this video. So, you're an artist who wants to start getting into selling merchandise at anime conventions. And now, with the vaccine out, many conventions are slowly starting to make their way back. While there are bound to be some changes to these conventions to better comply with pandemic procedures, many things about tabling at a convention are bound to be the exact same as before. I've been tabling at conventions for a while now. My first table at a con was back in 2011, and I was woefully underprepared for the experience, to say the least. It had only been my second time at a convention altogether. The first time I attended a con, I didn't even step foot into the Artist Alley area, so I had no idea what booths even looked like, let alone what I needed to successfully run one. So, my very first booth, back in 2011, I was set up at the end of a very long hallway and was the last table in the line. I was placed right next to the exit of the entire building, and thus many people just walked right on past me to leave the con for the day. Which I can understand why people didn't even stop to give me a second glance. I was sat at an empty table without anything besides a stack of computer copier paper and mechanical pencils. I didn't even have a tablecloth, so many people probably just assumed I was a random attendee that decided to camp out at an empty table to doodle. I had made $15 the entire weekend from selling sketches for $1. Even back then, that wasn't enough to pay for the cost of the table, let alone the travel expenses I had accumulated. Luckily, I'm rather stubborn, and I didn't let this one bad experience stop me from trying again. I committed to research, attending conventions, and viewing what other people were doing, and improving my own craft as much as possible. And, with a drastically more confident grasp on my abilities, I tabled at my second ever convention in 2014, and, as you can imagine, the rest is history. I love tabling at conventions and interacting with people over art and general nerd culture, and I want to make sure that other people can experience this wonder as well as make a bit of money at the same time. As the title of the video may suggest, this is a basic guide on how to get started with tabling at a convention for beginners. If you've never tabled at a convention before, I encourage you to watch the entire video. If you have previous experience with tabling at conventions, please make sure to check the description box for timestamps for different topics within this video so you can get the advice you need and not waste your time with things that you think you have a confident grasp on. If you think I touch on some subjects that are like no-brainers, I just want to remind everyone that just because you believe something is common sense, that not everybody operates with that level of foresight. I mean, I know I didn't, so I just want to make sure that no one makes the same mistakes I did. If you are outside the US and don't plan on tabling within the US, you might be able to skip this part. The first thing you want to do prior to your Artist Alley adventures is to research taxes for your area. You should probably most definitely seek help from a qualified tax professional. Taxes and the procedures to pay your taxes will be different depending on where you live, because each state has different laws regarding to vending at events. Some states will require you to purchase a permit prior to the event, and some conventions may even ask for that permit number. Other states might not require a permit, but they might require a license to sell, which is a bit of a more long-term agreement than just a permit. Unfortunately, both licenses and permits do cost a bit of money, so remember to do your research into your state and the state you might be traveling to in order to see just what kind of documentation you'll need in order to table at that event. Some states aren't as strict about licenses or permits if you only do 1 or 2 events a year. You can find out what kind of documentation you need in a variety of ways, like searching for seller information per state, by calling and talking to a representative in your city, talking to a tax expert, like H&R Block, or even talking to your bank. Talking to a tax expert or a bank, they will also be able to help you with information in regards to paying your taxes as an independent seller. When it comes to paying taxes, it's kind of a similar vein to permits and licenses, in which it's different per state. Some states will require you to pay your taxes quarterly, while others will require you to pay it once a year. When it comes to taxes, you need to withhold a percentage of your earnings. This is something you need to find through your state website or local tax professional to find out how much you need to be withholding per sale. While it might be more than you need, it's a good rule of thumb to withhold about 30% of your earned income in a savings account for tax purposes. Be sure to also keep receipts of things you purchase for your business, because some things like equipment and travel expenses can be written off on your taxes. It helps to have like a spreadsheet and save all of your online transaction history too. I highly encourage you to reach out to an actual person when it comes to questions regarding sales and taxes, instead of just solely relying on the internet. This is because many sites about licenses, permits, sales tax, they're all written in this like legal jargon nonsense, and it might be kind of confusing for some people. And you don't want to be confused when dealing with issues relating to taxes, because the IRS will not care if you are confused. They will still audit you. And please don't ask me Little old me for tax advice, I still get confused, and I just take all of my paperwork that I've accumulated to my tax guy and wish him luck while he does it for me. I don't have a lot of advice for people coming in from outside the US to table at conventions besides researching foreign taxes and how the state you are traveling to deals with collecting out-of-country taxes. When tabling at conventions, you obviously need to treat it as a business because it's a business, so you should be using a separate bank account for your tabling needs. This helps to make sure that you're only using the money from your sales on your business, including separating your personal income with your withheld taxes. Another reason to have a bank account just in general when working at anime conventions is so that you have the capacity to use a card reader. PayPal might have advanced enough by this point to have their own card reader, but that wasn't really available to me when I first started accepting card payments. I personally use a Square reader from the company Square, which was, or maybe still is, available for free through their website for your very first card reader. You can pay extra in order to get a fancier card reader that accepts chip payments instead of the standard swipe. There's apparent benefits to using chip readers, like it making it kind of harder for customers to dispute after the event is over, apparently. I personally still just use the standard swipe card reader, so I'm not like too sure about the validity of that claim, but it is something to be mindful of. You want to expect the best from people, but a fact of life is that people just can be shitty, so do the work to protect yourself financially as well as physically during events. Last piece of advice for like financial purposes is to keep count of everything you have and actively sell. Be sure to count your stock before and after events. If you are doing a convention that is longer than one day, it might be beneficial to do some stock counting after each day of the convention is over and you're like back in your hotel or whatever. This is to take count of not only what you've sold and have left, but also to see if there was any merchandise that had been stolen or damaged during the day. You want to take account of every sale you make for a variety of reasons. As you can probably surmise from the title of this section, the most important being how much you should be withholding from your taxes per item. Another reason to keep track of which items are selling is so that you can better understand your customer base. What items do they seem to like better? What items do they seem to ignore? Do these items differ per convention or placement of the items on your display? This kind of information will also help you in the long run when it comes to picking out which items to move, stock more of, or which items that you need to phase out of your product lineup altogether. I'll mention it now, but I'm also going to touch on it a bit more later. A big piece of advice from one artist to another is that just because you love how something turned out doesn't mean that every single person is also going to love it. There's been a lot of work that I thought would be like super hot sellers, so I ordered like extra stock according to that line of thought, and now I have like a lot of extra copies of stuff that no one seems to want or care about. But like I said, we'll touch on that more in a little bit, so put a pin in it, and we'll return to the subject of phasing out content shortly. At this point, you have kind of like an idea of some things to do prior to starting and a tip for when you're actively selling, so let's get into where you're going exactly, because sometimes that will dictate what kind of products you're allowed to sell. In order to get a table at an artist alley, you have to apply to them. While some conventions still operate under first-come, first-served rules, many have tried to combat people mass-buying tables in bulk using bots by making table selections a lottery or juried process. Lottery, as it sounds like, is when your application is put into a pool and is randomly selected from all the other artists that applied. This is usually the most unbiased way that people are able to get into a convention's artist alley, due to your name being drawn having little to nothing to do with the involvement of a human. The issue with lottery table selections, in my opinion, is that it means that there's bound to be like an extreme fluctuation in the quality of work that's present in the hall. The variety and quality of work could prevent buyers from staying and shopping in the hall if they don't see artwork that they like upon first glance. If a convention is advertising themselves properly, which a lot of them don't, but if they are and listing the artists on their website like they're supposed to who are going to be present within the hall, some prepared customers may avoid the hall altogether if they don't see a portfolio that they like. Many beginner artists, they tend to think they're a little kind of hot shit, that's just kind of a fact. You have to have some degree of confidence in your abilities as a creator to even persist in the process of making art and trying to make a career out of it. But when an amateur or beginner artist is placed next to an artist who makes anime versions of museum quality work, and as such the beginning artist is not making sales as rapidly as the other artist, it could cause a bit of a disconnect and make the artist with the poorer quality work second guess themselves as a creator. While this could potentially be a humbling experience for some, others could begin to feel resentment of the success of others if they don't progress at the same pace. At the end of the day, other creators are not supposed to be your competition, but it can end up feeling that way when so many people bypass you to go to someone else. A little unscripted right here, but another issue with lottery tables is that there's no real way to counteract like art theft or AI art or things of that nature getting into the hall, because like I mentioned before, lottery has like almost nothing to do with a person selecting who's going to be in the hall, you know? You could argue that like when your name is drawn out of the lottery that they could like double check like your work, but I'll be honest, like a lot of cons are not really ran the best, so I don't really foresee a lot of them actually putting that extra step in to, you know, make sure that they're not having AI art or art theft in their halls, especially because of the fact that I've been tabling since 2014. I can not even count on both my hands how often I come across art theft in these cons. Juried selections are a little more complicated. To have a juried selection means that the convention will employ a panel of judges to review your application and select you based on the quality of your work. While many juried conventions will try to claim that they employ unbiased judges, humans, by nature, will have preconceived biases based on their own personal preferences and aesthetics. For example, I, personally, don't care for perler art. Most perler artists I've seen at cons are just kind of recreating pre-existing sprites from games, and I kind of feel like that's a bit of a cheat. Not to say that every single perler artist I've ever seen does this, but some design their own work, own unique sprites, fine and dandy, adorable, good job, A+, gold star. But due to seeing so many copying designs, they overall have kind of just ruined the batch for me. Unlike lottery conventions, juried cons tend to feel a bit more unified in the quality of work that's going to be presented within the hall, due to those preconceived notions of what the jury may or may not think makes a piece of artwork good. While it equally hurts to be rejected from a juried convention as much as it does to have people walk right by you at a lotteried one, juried cons kind of give you the dignity to acknowledge that maybe your skill level wasn't necessarily the part of the problem, but rather that your aesthetics may not match what the aesthetics of the jury was. Regardless of if the convention is a lottery or jury selection, many conventions will have a section in their applications for you to put a link into where to find your work. Now, I need everyone to gather around. Come close, children. Get your carpet square, blankie, whatever. Listen very closely. As closely as you possibly can. I might shout at you. Probably not. Never, ever, ever, never link your social media on an application unless it is required. This advice goes to everything art related that you apply to. Conventions, Zines, commissions if you find them outside of social media, whatever. Never link your social media. Go to a free website builder, make your own website. It can literally be as simple as a landing page with your name and some pictures. Just do that. Do it. The shopping area at a convention is the largest pull for the convention, allowing fans of various things to get fandom-related things, general cutesy nerdy things, easily and conveniently. Since the shopping area is such a large pull for attendees, a juried show is going to try to focus on bringing in artists who in turn will bring in more attendees who specifically want to shop from them. While the convention will claim to be completely unbiased in their decisions to select you, remember what I already said. People in general just have preconceived biases. Having a low follower count on your social media can and will negatively sway a judge's opinion on your work. After all, oh my god, if you don't have a large following, obviously that means your work isn't good, right? I'm very bad at promoting myself, and my social media definitely suffers very heavily because of that. Most platforms, I range between like 300 and 800 followers tops. There's the rare little occasion where I break 1,000, but that's it. And I struggle to get more than that. As such, when I was using social media platforms as a way to apply to conventions and other projects, I was rejected 9 out of 10 times. Very disheartening. This isn't because my work is terrible, but because people saw that low number and shrugged me off. A lot of them didn't even see my work. Trust me, I've asked. Once I switched off of applying using social media and switched to a website where I have no follower count and thus people actively have to view my work, I saw an exponential increase in the amount of acceptance letters I got for conventions and other projects. Instead of being rejected 9 out of 10 times, I was instead accepted in a similar ratio. Trust me, the website works. Make your own, thank me later. In addition to the general portions of the application to fill out information about yourself, conventions will also have a section in either the application or on their websites that will inform you of the general do's and don'ts of the con. Things like don't scream at people from across the room to come over to your table, or just common courtesy type things. But these rules will also include what kind of products you're allowed to sell. Many conventions are fine with fan art being sold within the artist alley, but again, some are not. Others are okay with things like mystery bags and stickers, and again, others are not. Before deciding to even apply to a convention, you should really be reading over those rules of the convention to ensure that, you're a good fit for it. If you're an artist that mainly deals in fan art, like myself, then there's not much of a point in applying to conventions that ban fan art altogether and only allow you to deal in original works. While you could just make some original pieces to sell at events like this, it's more time effective not to stress yourself out with last minute prep work and to instead focus your efforts on events that you know you're going to do well at. Extra bit here, I know that I had this entire section on how to apply to cons and tips for that, but I never actually stated where to find conventions to apply to. Unfortunately, a lot of conventions do tend to be word of mouth, especially if you don't know what the cons are called, to look them up yourself. One website that you could try is called animecons.com. Unfortunately, I am primarily just an anime artist, so that's the only website that I know of off the top of my head, because like I said, a lot of the conventions are word of mouth. But if you have any tips, tricks, or any insight on how to find things that are not anime related, like a video game convention or a comic book convention or things of that nature, feel free to leave it in the comments, please. I am begging you. When you are selecting which conventions to attend, you need to be sure about your traveling arrangements and expenses. While some people may find it difficult to plan so far in advance, many conventions will require you to start making travel plans months to even a year in advance. Let's take Colossal Con in Sandusky, Ohio, for example. The hotel for that, yeah, good luck getting an on-site hotel for that, because that gets booked out literally while you're at the convention. It gets booked out for the next year while the con is currently going on. It's terrible. Part of your travel plans will need to include things like transportation, boarding, arrival and departure times, food, and budgeting revolving around all of those topics. Arguably, the most important thing to account for in your travel plans is your arrival and departure times. Conventions tend to run on a pretty set schedule, and some events will only give you a certain window to check into the Artistallion setup. If you miss that window, you risk your table being given away without a refund. While many will understand issues with traffic and plane delays, sometimes it can be kind of a hassle to get in touch with convention staff in a timely manner, due to the staff members having their own schedules in place to help vendors out in person with their load-in needs. I like to operate under the assumption that traffic will be at the very worst it could possibly ever be when I'm traveling, so I tend to give myself an hour window added into my original drive time. So if an event is 4 hours away from me, I assume it's actually going to take me 5 hours to get there. This usually results in me arriving to events really early, but that just gives extra time for other purposes, like using the bathroom, stretching, and grabbing a snack. When you're in the process of selecting which events you want to go to, you should in turn be figuring out how you're going to get there to said event. There isn't much of a point in applying and being accepted to a place that you can't get to. There are obviously a variety of ways to get to any event, like driving, taking a plane, or even taking a train. Each option you have also comes with a myriad of things you also need to additionally plan for, though. Things to consider when driving is if you're driving alone or swapping driving duties with someone as you go along. How many bathroom breaks or gas fill-ups are you going to need to take? If you're going to be taking the main roads or toll roads, and where are you going to be parking once you get to the event? Taking a plane or train obviously raises a kind of different set of issues, the key being issues with your luggage, as many Artist Alley displays tend to be a lot larger than what is typically considered your average luggage. Many artists tend to ship their displays and stock to events several weeks prior to their arrival to just ensure everything arrives in time, which is a pretty drastic cost to consider, especially if your materials arrive late or vanish in transit. Other things to think about are if your plane or train will need a layover, potential boarding delays or cancellations, and what you need to consider for your carry-ons. And most importantly, you need to think about how are you going to get to the hotel or convention center from the airport or train station. Considering a rental car, rideshare, taxi, those all should be included in your budget. Once you've figured out how you're getting to the area that the con is in, you should also be considering where are you going to be staying, rooming, sleeping, showering. Assuming you made it this far into the section here, it's because you're probably not local to the events that you want to go to. You need to start considering if you're going to rent somewhere for the weekend or if you're going to book a hotel room. Many conventions, pretty much all of them that I attend at least, take place within hotel-hosted convention centers. Thus, many artists will choose to stay on-site to make things as streamlined as possible. Benefits to staying on site also include not having to repeatedly pay for parking from leaving and then coming back every day, and saving time driving or walking from location to location. Of course, there are some rare events that just won't have on-site hotel options at all. Or, like the Colossal Con I mentioned before, the hotels get booked out nearly instantly upon the room blocks being open for that event, and that leaves you no choice but to stay somewhere else. Then it's important to remember the distance and time between where you stay and where you need to go. Getting lost is embarrassing and scary. Trust me on that. As strange as it sounds, a lot of newer con-goers, and even vendors, they don't take food into account when budgeting their trips. This usually falls into, like, the mindset that people, like, don't get to go to conventions every day, so they kind of want to, like, shop and splurge their money, and so they forget to eat. You should never ever combine your food money with your general spending money, and to separate it further, you should not include your general spending money with your business expenses. If you do not have enough money to buy merchandise and food, you do not have enough money for merchandise. This advice goes beyond just Artist Alley tip, but rather just a general convention tip. You are not going to guilt someone into giving you a discount by saying you won't be able to eat if you buy something at full price. I get that sob story literally like 30 times a day at every single convention. I'd rather you take care of yourself than get a keychain. The content you produce is going to be an important part of what kind of conventions you'll attend, even past the beforehand knowledge that some conventions will ban fan art and others will allow it. While a lot of conventions tend to house like a more generalized pop culture vibe, combining anime, western comics, video games, some conventions are a bit more specialized to the subsection of nerd culture that they are. Sometimes the name of the convention is going to be enough of a derivative to know like what the attendance base is going to be into, like BronyCon or Midwest Fur Fest. Others can be a bit more ambiguous. From experience, if the name tends to have like Comic-Con in the title, they tend to cater more towards Western properties like Star Wars and Marvel and that kind of stuff. If the name of the convention doesn't give you like mini leads to what content the attendees are going to be interested in, it might be a good idea to look up what kind of content was featured in the past. This would be things like the past guest appearances, panel information, and even attendee cosplays during the convention. A good tip would also be look up things like insert convention name here, haul, to see what kind of merchandise people bought. It's really important to research the kind of like attendee base that a convention will have to better understand what they expect to see in the vendor hall. While it is possible to get sales from people who like cross-pollinate between nerd cultures, it's much more beneficial to like go with the flow, so to speak, and vend at events that you know will foster success in your business. An exception to this tends to be more like universally nerdy things. It's not uncommon to have rave gear, D&D accessories, and soap and candle makers at like any sort of event. These are more specialized things that can be repurposed for not only mainstream audiences, but labeled and marketed towards nerds as well. As much as it's important to know what kind of audience is going to be attending the event you're selling at, you also need to know what kind of content you want to produce beyond just anime or comic books or video games. Having a more specialized interest in things is called having a niche, and it can be a good way to stand out in comparison to other vendors in your area. Your niche could be broad, like drawing only shonen properties, or selling prints, or only drawing pretty women. In contrast, it can also be a lot more specified, like doing only B-themed jewelry, or obscure 90s game sprites. Thinking about what you've seen in your research would be important in deciding if you or your niche is a good fit for the event that you'll be at. While a niche can make you memorable if your topic is trending and in demand, it can also kind of be a double-edged sword if you're not careful. Narrowing your focus down too much can also in turn hinder you by alienating customers that don't share that interest. Regardless of niche, it might be beneficial to offer a variety of things for different people. While it is important to cater to your general clientele, you can also have a few pieces here and there within your style that could interest a more general audience. As an example, if your niche is like making D&D monsters, someone not into D&D could still enjoy the product if it's something a little more recognizable. At the end of the day, deciding what kind of content to produce should ultimately lie upon your interest, because things drawn by someone passionate about the subject tend to be a lot better as opposed to drawing content for something that you have really no interest in. However, touching on this again, as I mentioned earlier, just because you are in love with a particular product, maybe it's the best thing that you ever drew, maybe it's your favorite thing in the world, that doesn't mean that customers are also going to feel the same way. You will, 100%, guarantee it, have flops. Everyone does. And you shouldn't let that discourage you from continuing to create things that you love, though. When you have something that has been around for a while and it just doesn't seem to be taking off in the way that you would hope, you might need to phase it out of your lineup and discontinue it. Easy ways to phase out of a product include listing it for a discount, which I find to work with an alright amount of success if your work is just really good and just people want to support you as a person in general. Discounting can also flop, especially if it's something people seriously have no interest in, like a really obscure like show or whatever. If that happens to be the case, the magic solution to that is to make mystery grab bags. While some conventions, like I mentioned, might ban them, if you are allowed to sell them, people eat that shit up. Be mindful when making your grab bags because you never want your customer to feel like they're getting scammed. That feeling of being scammed is the reason why they tend to be banned at a lot of events from bad faith players putting essentially garbage in them and then overcharging for the bags. Seriously, like my assistant once purchased one from a vendor for $40. It was supposed to be like Pokemon themed one. She was really excited because that's like her favorite thing ever. She pulled out a bottle cap necklace with a low peg Pikachu printed on copier paper taped onto it, among like other garbage. Of course, another reason why they're banned is because a lot of vendors and like some artists will put like bootleg and counterfeit merchandise in the bags too, but that's like a whole different like fiasco. The stuff I put in my own grab bags are things I absolutely know will never organically sell out on their own. You might call me a little generous, but I also really overstuff my grab bags as well. I actually made like an entire video repackaging some of my grab bags because like I was using those brown sandwich baggies and they got all crumpled and kind of gross looking, so I like put them in more like sleek, waterproof like red bags that, you know, garner a lot more attention than the like the little sandwich baggies. I usually stuff them with like maybe 4 or 5 prints, handful of stickers, or even a bonus item like a charm or a button. While most of the stuff will be like years old nonsense, I also like to try to make sure that the bags are worth their price by including 1 or 2 newer items as well. I very often have customers open the bags right in front of me, and very rarely do I see someone disappointed in the stuff, even if they don't care for the properties contained inside, since there's just so much stuff that they can then like gift to friends or family or things like that. But you can't do any of that without first having products to sell in the first place. While it is possible to do literally nothing but on-site commissions all weekend to get your income, you will find yourself sore and burnt out by the end of the con. Doing nothing but on-site work also leads to the risk of taking on too much at once during a con and not being able to finish them all in time. Side note, let's just say that you only accept 1 on-site commission at a time, to ensure that you just have enough time to finish them all, right? You then have to turn away people that want to buy things from your table, and despite them saying, oh, I'll come back when you're available, a vast majority, definitely, 100%, will not ever return. You want to avoid the potential for people to charge back or demand a refund at any chance you can get. If you're not going to be able to finish on-site commissions in time to hand them over to the customer in person, you probably shouldn't be taking them at all, or at least not that many. You could, like, mail the finished commissions later, I guess, but again, that can run the risk of you doing the work, but the customer issuing the chargeback anyway due to not getting the work in the speed in which they wanted it. A lot of customers at conventions are actually like very nice and understanding. I rarely get anyone being rude at an event. However, that doesn't mean that rude or entitled people don't exist at cons. In order to supplement on-site work, or maybe you just don't want the pressure of doing on-site work, I get that sometimes, you're going to need products featuring your artwork to sell. A key point to remember through this entire guide is research, and what's that? More research. Attending conventions and looking at fellow artists both in person and online will give you a better idea of what kind of products do well at cons versus what ones won't. Things like prints and stickers are like kind of the general staple of artist alley scenes, but other things like stationery or jewelry have also seen an uptick in popularity recently. When ordering product, recommended, start in small batches. As a beginner, or even with just a new product in general, there's no way of knowing which ones are going to be really big sellers and which ones are going to flop hard. By starting with a small quantity of things, it'll be easier to phase out and get rid of items that no one else seems to want. Reiterating that just because you are in love with a piece of artwork doesn't mean that the general populace is also going to love it. Don't be upset over your flops. Just research what seems to do well for others and then kind of put your own unique spin on things. As an example, there's been a recent uptick in artists offering memo pads, but generally, as you know if you've ever used a memo pad, the paper just kind of like comes off of them, because a lot of them are like those like tacky glue ends and not like a spiral bound or anything like that. But I've never seen people offering pocket folders in the line of stationery, so when I started offering them, they became like one of my hot sellers at conventions. Since the pocket folders are something that complement products I myself don't offer, I can then recommend other artists in the hall that do have products that complement mine. This also works out fantastically with my bookmarks, where if they buy one from me, I can then recommend someone else in the hall that offers notebooks or comic books or something. Or of course, if someone walks up to me with a book, I can then recommend one of my bookmarks to them. Remember, other artists in the hall don't have to be your competition. Another shortly unscripted moment, but when you're thinking of products that you want to sell at a convention and you realize that like literally nobody else has sold that product, you have to be very, very, very careful, because there could be 2 reasons for this. It's either A, your idea is so innovative and genius that like literally no one's ever thought of it, and so it's going to be like amazing. Or Option B, which is a little more likely, unfortunately, is that other people have tried it in the past and it just doesn't work out. So just be mindful of that if you're trying to be like super unique and innovative in like the Artist Alley. Once you find out what kind of products you want to sell, comes the tricky part, finding where to get things made. Unfortunately, it's a very prevalent issue here and very toxic in my opinion. There's a lot of gatekeeping within the convention Artist Alley communities. Very rarely do people want to disclose who their manufacturer is for products, which can lead to a lot of headache and expensive trial and error. Often the reasoning I hear behind these gatekeeping tendencies would be along the lines of like, oh well, I worked really hard to find this manufacturer, so I don't want someone else finding them that easy. And also like, if more people begin to use this manufacturer, their quality will decrease. Which all of this is just fancy, long-winded ways of saying, I struggled, so you should struggle too. It's a pretty shitty mindset, and honestly, like, if no one ever disclosed manufacturers, like, ever, doesn't that ultimately hinder that company's business? What happens when you and your little handful of buddies can't afford to upkeep an entire factory and they go out of business and now you have to struggle to find a new company? Sorry, just the manufacturing gatekeeping is pretty disgusting to me. But unfortunately, it is the reality we all must suffer through right now. Due to this, don't be upset if you ask someone where they got something and they beat around the bush or they just get really hostile bitchy towards you. It stings, but remember that if they're mean to you, your engagement is what ultimately makes or breaks them in the long run. One place to go to get like some information on manufacturers is the Artist Alley Network Discord server. While there is still like a lot of gatekeeping there, it's mostly contained to being like outrageous ignored for asking who the manufacturer is, as opposed to people just getting pissed off and screaming at you. But there's also a glimmer of hope with the occasional person openly recommending a manufacturer that they worked with in the past. Another way to kind of work around the gatekeeping and product spaces is to join a group order group, abbreviated as GO. Group order groups usually consist of 1 or 2 people who know about a manufacturer and they'll place the order with them on your behalf. This is still mildly problematic in its own way, but ultimately you can save money by ordering your products through a GO as opposed to on your own due to like a lot of manufacturers offering reduced bulk prices. The drawback to Go orders is that they can be very poorly organized, and it kind of takes a little longer to get your products since many of them will ship the products from the manufacturer to the organizer, and then the organizer has to ship them out to you. Some of these groups will offer like a direct shipping option from the manufacturer, but like that varies from group to group. I also don't really have much advice in terms of finding and joining these group order servers, mainly because like I was personally invited to all the ones that I'm a part of, but you can ask around places like that Artist Alley Network server that I mentioned before. Generally speaking right now, when it comes to ordering stuff, I personally go through about 3 manufacturers currently, in addition to the group orders I take part in. I typically use the printing service called CatPrint for my general prints. They offer some pretty sturdy paper options, custom sizes, holographic, and foil finishes. They also have some guaranteed delivery options, and their customer service tends to be very understanding of any issues you may have with your order, often offering to either credit your account or reprint your order if there's a quality issue. The downside to them is that, like, while their quality is amazing most of the time, when you do get a batch containing some quality issues, it tends to be most of that batch. Mainly I get things like streaks in my prints or like random ink splattering. One time I got like a wadded up ball of paper in my stack of prints that creased and ruined like literally the entire order, but they ended up express reprinting that entire order and shipping it out as a replacement fairly quickly. I'm going to show you guys how to get started with ordering prints through CatPrint in order to sell at conventions and stuff. CatPrint has been a long-time supplier of convention prints, so don't let the homepage here fool you. They like to advertise a lot of like, you know, postcards, wedding cards, you know, Christmas cards, that kind of stuff. But like I said, they are a long-time supplier for, you know, anime and comic book convention prints. So they're familiar enough with the materials. So first of all, you're probably going to need to make an account. Mine is already logged in, so I'm not going to walk you through that process. So you're going to go ahead and say click started right here at the top, and then you're going to get a prompt for either browse our designs or upload your design. Obviously, browse our designs is more for the people that want to make like wedding cards and things like that, things that they didn't actually create themselves. So you're going to go to upload your design, and then it's going to take you into this page after it finishes loading. And your page will look something like this, right? And what I'm going to do, for the sake of this like walkthrough, is I'm just going to select things that I already have like available in my like item queue because, you know, I use this account very frequently to order my prints, but you're going to upload your files here. You can upload multiple files at once. It does take a while to load in, don't worry. But basically what I'm going to do is just select some files that I already have available, right? And make sure that all of the files that you select for whatever job that you create are the same size. So as you see here, I've selected 6 different files and just put add files to jobs. Congratulations, they're added to the thing. It says select job type to continue. Well, your job type is this right here, which is like either your size of your prints, or if you want to do something special like a brochure or a like envelopes, folders, that kind of stuff, right? Since I selected a bunch of bookmarks, I'm going to have to do custom size, which my bookmarks are 2 by 6. Save. There's your custom size, and then you're going to get a little preview window here. I encourage you not to fiddle around with the preview window too much because of the fact that stretching, cropping, that can always distort your images, right? And so for your file setup here is where you'll select whether or not you want full bleed or a white background, and whether or not you want full color and a blank background, or full color, black and white, or another full color, right? And when you do this though, be careful because as you see down here, the Pikachu one turned into the black and white, which means that if I would have just selected this job, to go ahead and start printing on this, the back of the Rekielagna bookmark is going to be Pikachu, which is not what you want. So if you're doing a front and back image, you're going to go back over here to this side that says Files, and you are just going to select all of those same exact files that you had and add those back onto the job. And then now you see Rekielagna, and then the black and white version is the same image, but obviously in grayscale. And as you see here, Pikachu, but then you get this image that's not the Pikachu. So you're going to go through here and make sure that you move things around in order to get the correct images lined up with the correct color image. And then from there, your paper selection. They have a wide variety of paper selections. You can do satin finishes, you can do standard gloss, you can do holographic. They even have cream shimmer, magnetic, vellum, they get just a large variety of stuff. You can even do plastic images if you really want. And then you also have your finishes if you want it rounded corners, if you want your prints to be folded. Don't know why you would, but maybe you need it. Like I said, you can do folders, booklets, spiral notebooks, things like that. Just a heads up, I never tried their spiral bond books, but I don't actually think they're notebooks. I think they're just the collection of your prints in a book. And don't forget down here where it says quantity and the price. The price right now is $14.37. That's all assuming that I'm having 1 copy of each thing printed. But I usually get 10. Refresh it. Price didn't actually go up. Just make sure that all of your images per job are the same sizing. And then you can when you click review job and then add to cart, you can then from your cart add another job and then just rinse repeat the cycle until you have all of your images on whatever size printing you want, right? Just fair warning, don't ever go to this site and try to do 1 image per job because you will spend an outrageous amount of money. There is no point in doing that. And another little tidbit trick, I know that we selected a custom size because bookmarks are a custom size. However, if you use one of their sizing that's pre-loaded available to you, the 3.5 by 5 or 5 by 5 by 8 by 5, or scrolling down here, I do 11 by 17, that's my standard poster. If you use one of their pre-loaded sizing, their price is cheaper because they don't have to cut it funky. Just as a heads up. So if you're doing custom sizes, you will end up paying more for your prints as opposed to just picking something that they have preloaded onto their site. While CatPrint does offer sticker options, technically, they're just standard label paper, and it costs an arm and a leg to get them die cut. Instead, I use a company called Sticker App, where the standard sticker is a waterproof vinyl, which are very nice. They can go on a car if you want it. I love them. They offer a wide variety of finishes, including holographic and clear, and you can drag your design to scale for a more customized sizing than their standards. Their customer service is also very pleasant, and they offer to either reprint your order or refund you for mess-ups. I've only ever had one major flaw in a Sticker App order when I found a very small gnat, like a baby fly, stuck in the plastic vinyl coating of my sticker. They were very quick to give me a refund for the sheet that was affected, and I've never had an issue since. Finally, I do stock a lot of miscellaneous products like keychains and magnets and even pillows now. I get them all through a company called Vograce. While Vograce does do some in-house manufacturing for products, they also act as a middleman company for some other products that they offer, like enamel pins, for example. I've never had a quality issue from them yet, but they do have a unique downside in comparison to the other locations I've mentioned, and that is that Vograce is not located within the United States. This may not be an issue for some people, but due to them being an overseas manufacturer, that does mean the time frame to get products through them is significantly longer in comparison to the other companies. Vograce is located in China, and thus the travel time through boat or plane and the time spent processing through customs can cause your order to be delayed by weeks or even months. Okay, so at this point in the video, I'm discussing Vograce and things to order from Vograce. So this is the Vograce website. It's vograce.com, very simple. This is their front page, and you have a big variety of items that you can choose from. So in general, a lot of people go with their keychains because I think that's what they got popular for, if I'm not mistaken. But similarly to cat print, what you can do with the keychains is you can select one keychain, double-sided, same design, typically is going to mean that both the sides of your image match up, basically. They're not two different like designs and whatnot. The representative that you end up getting assigned to your order can help you further with like some things that might be confusing on their site, but basically, if you are getting all of your keychains, let's say you're getting them all in 2.5 inches, and you want them all to be, like, double-sided holographic, from there, even if you have, like, 7 or 8 designs, all you really gotta do is type in the quantity of charms you want, and then from there, what you are going to do is either upload your artwork directly to the site, or if you are using like a zip folder, you're going to leave a comment in your cart. Like when you go to checkout, there's an option to leave a comment. Just say that you need to email the artwork separately for them to, in order for them to like put in your order, basically. That's what I end up having to do, but again, this ends up saving you money in the long run. Let's say that you get like 100 charms, 10 each, you got 10 designs. That's very similar to what I did last time with my charm order. And so I typed in 100 charms, and I put that I needed 10 each, and then I put that I needed to email them the designs. They did that for me. In addition to emailing them the designs, I also had to pick out which ones, like which accessories I wanted from their like this like little list. That's something else that they can like adjust for you through the email process. The reason why you want to have all of your charms on one order, one job, is because they do a discount for the quantity. So me ordering 100 charms, that was 55% off. It's a very drastic discount the more you order. And that's pretty much the same through, like, whatever you order, as long as, like, the sizing and, like, finish is the same for everything. Just because these are the current companies I use for my products doesn't mean I haven't experimented with others in the past. This is mainly due to the gatekeeping tendencies I mentioned previously. While the other companies I've used aren't bad per se, they were just not as cost-effective for my business model. One company I've used is called Chili Pig, and I use them for charms, which they have really outstanding quality and shipping rate. They have a pretty limited selection of finishes though, and they are pretty pricey overall. They are located within the US, so given that they're not too busy with the convention season, they can have fantastic turnaround time and cheaper shipping options than Vograce. I've used 2 different companies when making buttons. First, I used a place called purebuttons.com, and they have a very straightforward and simple process in ordering their products. Their selection of finishes are also very limited. At the time of using them, it was just like gloss, matte, or metallic, but their quality? Outstanding. However, similarly to Chili Pig, their price per unit is a little high in comparison to Vogrice. Also located within the US, their turnaround time is speedy and their shipping rates are affordable. The second manufacturer I used for buttons is called Busy Beaver. They have a rather large catalog of finishes for your buttons, but from the samples I've gotten, some are a hit and some are a miss when it comes to printing your artwork with them. They are by far the most expensive manufacturer out of the 3 that I've used for buttons, but when you get a button with a finish that works, their quality is also great. Part of the reason why their buttons are a lot more expensive than the other 2 options is that they have a higher minimum order quantity, or MOQ. At the time of ordering from them, I was required to purchase 50 to 100 buttons depending on the finish, which is a bit of an issue if you're abiding by my, strategy of ordering small quantities of things so you're not left with like a shit ton of things that can never sell. This is another manufacturer that's located within the US, so shipping is also affordable and their turnaround time was pretty good. I'm not going to set up any sort of like mock Artist Alley display for the sake of this video because it's a lot of work, but in my script I have written down to show some, products that I offer at conventions just so that people get a better idea of some things that they could order if they are starting their own convention journey here. So we got stickers. All of the stickers in this drawer are like special finishes, so like holographic or clear or something like that. Gorgeous. All of my new sticker designs, which are the ones in these baggies and drawers, they are all weatherproof, waterproof vinyl from Sticker App, which I would have discussed in the video, or am going to discuss in the video. I don't know where I'm putting this yet. And then we also get keychains, which I don't believe I have any keychain designs left from Chili Pig, which is the last place I ordered keychains from. All of the stuff now is from Vogrice, which their quality is pretty nice. There's no real rhyme or reason behind the drawers here with the keychains, just where I stuck them. All of my keychain designs are double-sided. Let me actually just pop one out here. Having double-sided keychain designs from Vogrice, at least, does not cost any extra bit here. And so, you get the one side, then when you flip it over, it's another picture. It helps to have both the pictures, obviously, line up and have the edges exactly the same so that you don't get, like, any sort of, like, overlap between the 2 images. I can show you an example of a charm that does have an overlap, though, because sometimes, as much as you try to get them to match up perfectly, it's just not realistic. It doesn't always happen. So if you look at this one of Aether from Genshin Impact, you'll notice by his shoe down here, there's a little, like, black, like, blobby thing. Well, that black blobby thing is actually Lumine's skirt from the other side of the charm. Same thing up here. You can very subtly see it up here. That little, like, black, like, marking on the edge of the circle is actually the little swoop-de-doo from his hair. So sometimes they don't always line up exactly, but as long as you get it as close as you can, people usually don't seem to care or mind. The double-sided design thing, similarly to the keychains, a lot of other products that Vogrice offers also does, like, that for no extra cost. So here is my ginormous Nap 20 pillow. Daytime on one side, nighttime on the other. I think it's pretty cute. Squishy, squishy, squishy. And conveniently enough, Catprint also doesn't charge extra to do a image on the other side of your prints. So color, holographic on this side. When you flip it over, I get it in the black and white because it's, I think it looks nice, but it's not holographic on the other side. Yeah, boy. And same thing with the stack of folders over here. Let me grab one. Okay. Here's one of my pocket folder designs, which are surprisingly well made. Wasn't really expecting that from, the print company, because I never really get anything besides prints from them. But yeah, this is the full design of the folder. It is also holographic. I just got all of my folders in holographic because, I don't know, I think they look nice. Plus, they're not really that expensive to make. But color on this side But then when we flip it over, yes, the design does get hidden by the pockets. They don't print anything on the pockets, but they do print on the inside of the folders, which I think is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Yay. And then Cat Print also offers magnet stock, because I think I just mentioned that. This is one of the magnets that I got through Cat Print, and unfortunately they did not appear to have any options to do any sort of die cutting or cutting to shape for the magnet options at the time that I ordered this, so it might be different. So the edges are all really, really rough because I had to cut it to shape. But fortunately enough for me, that Vogue Rice also offers magnet options, so I switched over to them for my next magnet design. Which, this is the magnet that I got from them, which, as you see, it is die cut to shape, so that there's no, like, funky wonky little edges. And also, they offer, like, an epoxy, like, topping on them, so it's thick boy. In addition to the magnets, I also get a variety of other things, like bottle cap opener, which I think is pretty cool. This is also from Vogue Rice. It's surprisingly affordable, and it already comes with, like, a keychain backing to it. And then we got buttons. I know I mentioned I have tried 3 different manufacturers for buttons, and this is actually all 3 of them. So this one, the I Believe in You All Might button here, is from purebuttons.com. It has a velvety matte finish. It's super soft to the touch. I really like these kind of buttons. If I'm getting more velvet matte finish buttons, I will continue to use Pure Buttons despite it being kind of expensive. This one, the Be Your Best Self Mob Psycho button, is from the Busy Beaver company that I mentioned, and it was ridiculously expensive. And just, it's kind of weird because, like, under, like, really, really super bright fluorescent lights, this finish isn't terrible, and you can actually see the design a lot better. But under, like, your regular kind of house lights, obviously the holographic, like, shattered, like, cosmic thing, it kind of overpowers the image a little bit sometimes, like, depending on how you, like, move it. So I probably, unfortunately, am not going to do them again. Like, I'll still do the design, but probably do a different manufacturer. And this one is from Vogue Rice. I just wanted to get, like, a small test button done, which I think this joke is pretty funny. And this is just your standard, like, regular gloss top button. So, nothing crazy. But obviously they offer different shapes. I think Pure Buttons also offers, like, a square, you know, design or whatever, but I've only ever used their round. And I know that Busy Beaver offers, like, a big variety of, like, sizes and, like, shapes too, but again, they're really expensive, so yeah. If you're someone that's trying to make a more, like, specialized product and you can't find a manufacturer through just asking or a group order group to join, you can also browse the site called Alibaba. Alibaba is a wholesale supplier website and also features a directory of manufacturers for different products. While it is a bit of a gamble on what kind of quality you can get through a manufacturer on Alibaba, they do have a verification checkmark system for real manufacturers to try to curb any, like, potential scammers. Regardless of what you are selling or where you can get it made, you should always be quality checking your products prior to the convention to ensure that everything is good. This is another iteration of making sure that you don't give your customers any reason to try to issue a refund from you. Just because a company tends to have a good track record for quality control does not mean that there can't be, like, the occasional issue. Some people won't mind purchasing products with minor flaws as long as they are made clearly aware of said flaws before purchase. Products with minor flaws are sometimes referred to in a grading system, like a B grade or a C grade. Most people who apply a grading system to their products also price them according to their grade, with lower grade products being cheaper than their perfect counterparts. Now that you kind of have an idea of what you want to sell, you have to take time to ensure that your work is properly sized for those products. Prints are, like, by far the easiest thing to make. Print shops, like the one I mentioned before, are able to print your work in a variety of sizes, including custom sizes, although I do recommend using a more standard sizing so that it's easier for your customers to get frames for your work, as most people apparently like to frame their prints. The biggest thing to consider when making a print is the bleed area. If you're printing an image without a white border, like as in the image goes all the way to the end of the page, it's called a full bleed. When you print an image with a full bleed, it is purposely cropped at the ends to get rid of that white border it would have had otherwise. Usually it's recommended to either include like a little bit of extra space at the ends of your images, or to simply just avoid putting any key details of your image at the edges. This is especially important if you're including your signature anywhere on your artwork. This advice, when pertaining to like bleed room on your images, can also be implemented with other products like buttons or mouse pads, as your artwork will be wrapped around that product. When making your artwork, regardless of what it is or what it's going to be for, it's recommended to use a canvas resolution of 300 dpi. DPI stands for dots per inch and is the number of pixels a digital image has. The more pixels, the smoother the image will look. When making artwork on a 300 dpi canvas, expect the artwork file to be massive. My standard print sizing is 11 inches by 17 inches, and that translates to about 3,300 by 5,100 pixels. You can technically still get prints made from image files that are not 300 dpi, but in my opinion, there's like some pretty obvious differences in the quality of the work. If you tend to have a more of like a painterly style, it might not be like as world-shattering, but if you use crisp line art in your work like I do, there's going to be a very obvious fuzziness to your print if you use a web standard 72 dpi canvas instead. Okay, so for the 72 dpi versus the 300 dpi segment of this video, I wanted to just demonstrate what I'm talking about for like the difference in line quality with the two DPI qualities for digital art. So the Bakudeku print right here was drawn with the expressed intent for it to be a print image, and so it was drawn on a 300 DPI canvas. So if you zoom in, you see how the lines are pretty nice and crisp. However, with this picture of Wenville and Celeste, my two OCs, it was originally drawn as just like a title card for my webcomic, so it was never really intended to be printed at this size at least. This is an 11 by 17 picture, and so when you zoom in here on that, you see the very obvious pixelated fuzziness of the lines, which kind of drives me nuts. So again, 72 DPI canvas at 11 by 17 will get this gross fuzziness versus 300 DPI canvas will give you more crisp, smooth line work. Now, this next piece of advice is something I actually don't do, so everybody experienced can roast me in the comments if they want, but I'm going to relay the information anyway in case it helps someone. Legend has it that if you use a CMYK color profile, your products are going to look better. This is because printers use CMYK color profiles when printing. As strange as this is going to sound, many colors that you're able to create using an RGB color profile can't actually be replicated using a CMYK printer. In my experience with using RGB color profiles when printing products is that many times my images will come out like significantly darker than what's shown on my screen. This is generally fine for me, really, personally, since my style tends to be very vivid and vibrant and bright, and when my prints come out a little darker than like anticipated, it actually kind of helps balance out the saturation of my artwork a little bit, in my opinion. However, it does become a noticeable issue in my artwork that already uses a dark and more desaturated color palette. If you're working in an RGB color profile, it is possible to convert the image to a CMYK color profile, but take caution as it sometimes is possible for your colors to shift and change a bit. When you're making your artwork for products, it is possible to repurpose that artwork from multiple products, but you have to be careful because you could run the risk of like cropping out important details or distorting the image from resizing. When making artwork for products that aren't like just standard prints, you should also be looking into the required or recommended dimensions and templates for that product. In addition to like the dimensions and templates for a product, some manufacturers will also recommend that you format your files in a particular way. Most manufacturers that I've used have like a walkthrough somewhere on their website on how to properly format your files, so be sure just to read thoroughly through the product listings. One tip for designing a keychain is to ensure that your final design takes up as much of a square as possible. That way you are getting your money's worth with the sizing you selected. If you take the two keychain designs I have, for an example, they are both selected to be the same size through the manufacturer. However, because one is taking up more of a square silhouette in comparison to the other, it looks larger despite the fact that they were supposed to be the same size. One way to give your keychains the illusion of looking larger than what they really are is to draw and format your keychain at an angle within your drawing software. Doing this can make the difference between your design looking this small or this large. This tip also works wonderfully for stickers as well.
So at this point of my video, the voiceover should be discussing how basically to angle your artwork when making designs for charms and stickers in order to maximize the canvas size that you are drawing on in order to give the illusion of your products looking larger. And so this one obviously is very square in silhouette, so it looks very large despite the fact that both these sizings, when I ordered these, they were both on the same order. They're both sized, or supposed to be sized, at like 2.5 inches. And so if you actually overlap this one, you'll see that the Jesse James charm is practically double the width. So if you're intending for your charms to be a little larger in sizing, I do encourage you to not draw your canvas like this, but draw it at an angle like that, so that you can better get a full square with your design, because it will give the illusion of your charms and stickers being slightly larger.
But remember, when designing in a way that takes up as much of the canvas as you possibly can, to leave enough room for the roster hole, aka where the clasp of your keychain will be attached. The second tip for keychains or anything made of acrylic is to avoid small bits and sharp edges, as they can be weak points in the design and lead to the charm breaking apart at those weak points. Just as important as it is to have products to sell, you have to know how much to charge people for those products. For this, I highly recommend you research pricing in person at conventions to see what your fellow artists are also charging for similar products to you. The reason why I recommend researching this in person is specifically because you have to take your overall expenses into account when deciding on a final price. When researching online though, like sites through like Etsy or Store Envy, many sellers will actually list their items significantly cheaper than their convention listed price due to being able to just ship the items directly from their houses. Obviously, this isn't the case at a convention because travel costs and table costs and badge costs and everything like that. So often the difference in pricing is rather drastic. For example, an artist selling charms on Etsy can go for like $3 to $5, but at a convention in person, they could go from like $10 to $15. If you priced yourself the same way that they're priced online, you probably wouldn't have much of a profit, if any at all. Don't be afraid to walk around the convention hall with like a notebook and pen to jot down the prices of other people's products to compare them to one another. While many artists' work is priced nearly identically, in my experience, some prices can differ, and it's important to see where those differences lie. It could be difference due to like the quality of the product, or it could be like just the cost to produce said products, or even just how far one artist has to travel to get to the event. When pricing your items, it is important to keep a good balance between not overcharging your products, but also not underselling yourself as a creator. It is okay to price your work competitively in comparison to your peers. After all, you are running a business. If you do decide to take your prices just a little cheaper in comparison to your neighbors, you have to be cautious of like certain ramifications for this decision. The most obvious ramification being that the cheaper your prices are, the less profit you'll make at the end of the weekend. If you're trying to make convention vending your full-time job, you need to figure out what kind of profits you need to be making per event in order to sustain yourself. The second, and a little lesser known issue with having your products listed a little too cheap, is that it could actually negatively impact your neighbors in the hall. You might be thinking, how? But having your work drastically cheaper in comparison to other artists, you can disrupt like the general expected economy of the convention. People who don't understand the work it takes to make, produce, market, travel, and sell all weekend might start believing others are severely overcharging their products, and thus it could cause them to lose out on sales. It's the "I can get this cheaper somewhere else" mentality. While not convention specific, a key example of this would be commission prices on a website like DeviantArt. The social economy on that site is fucking atrocious, where people seeking artists to do work for them will expect to only pay between $5 or $20 for fully rendered work due to so many inexperienced creators flooding the marketplace with their underpriced work. A way to counteract the risk of disrupting the hall's economy is to do deals as opposed to just having lower cost altogether. Many people love to feel like they're saving money in some degree, and buy one get one discounted or buy two get one free deals are extremely appealing to customers. Generally speaking, from my own experience at conventions, 11 by 17 sized prints can be priced within the range of $15 to $25. Average sized charms can be between $10 and $20. Stickers and buttons are often $3 to $5 each, and plushies are commonly within the $30 to $50 range. However, with the changes in inflation, these prices can also rise and lower as the years go on. But just as important as it is to price your work in a way that will attract customers, while also not hindering the economy of the hall. You also have to be sure to gain a profit from your work. If you price your work similarly to the artist around you, there's a good possibility that you'll get the profits you need. After all, they wouldn't have their work priced the way they do if they weren't making any money through those prices. However, if you find yourself charging similar or even higher prices for your work and not finding yourself gaining any profits at the end of the convention, excluding bad sales, you may need to reevaluate your budget for your business. While at a con, it is easy to get caught up in the numbers behind sales and think that you're doing really, really well and made tons of money, only to just break open the books once you're finished with the convention and realize that maybe you didn't even break even at that event. By breaking even, I mean taking the cost of your table, travel, food, product, display, hotel, and any other things into account. If you, let's say, make $1,000 at the convention, but it costs $300 to purchase the space, $100 in gas to get there, $700 for your hotel, $100 for food and drinks, the price adds up very quickly. This is why it's important to keep a record of everything you spend, specifically for your business, to ensure you're making money in the long run. Having an eye-catching display is arguably more important than just being good at art. While your art is part of what brings people to your table, it is how you display your art that will attract customers. This is another balancing act of sorts, to display enough material for people to be interested in it without having so much that it looks like a cluttered mess. You want to make sure that whatever amount of stuff that you have on display, your customers are able to view everything as completely as possible without needing to lean into your space or feel the need to move things around. Again, from my experience, you should minimize the amount of stuff that a customer can physically pick up, move, and interact with. While others might counter this point, primarily creators that make things like stuffed animals or the like, it is in my experience that the more customers are able to mess with something, the more time you are going to spend cleaning up that mess. While it's usually an accident, if you have too much loose material lying around, things can be knocked over, pushed onto the floor, kicked around, and just generally damaged through the course of the weekend. The more damaged your products get through the course of the event, the less profit you can potentially make, because nobody wants to pay full price for something that's damaged. Also, having things laying down on the tabletop isn't as eye-catching as something standing upright for people to see across the room. There are a variety of different methods to properly display your work. I'm primarily a print artist myself, so I use things like foam display boards, steel wire grids, and photo backdrops to hang my prints up so that people can see them when walking past. Even things like stickers or bookmarks can be displayed upright using things like whiteboards, corkboards, or picture frames. Most artist displays are pretty tall, so you need to be able to match that energy in comparison to your neighbors. If someone's eye line is looking up at 6 feet tall, looking at your neighbor's display, and your display is sitting at like 4 feet, a lot of people might not even notice you're there when walking around. If you can't have a display that competes with the height of your neighbors, you need to have other things to stand out in order to draw someone's line of sight to you. Things like temporarily standing and moving about, because motion tracks eyesight. Specialized lighting and highlighting your products could help. Ultimately, whether you use grids, backdrops, cubes, or something else is up to your individual display needs. Unlike manufacturing gatekeeping, most artists will actually be okay with you asking where they got part of their display. Most things you see at conventions for other booth displays can be found at like Walmart, Bath & Body Works, IKEA, and Amazon. You should also have some sort of like signage at your booth with your business name on display. This can really help you when people are looking for you later, as well as further finding you online if they want to follow you on social media later or, look at your shop online or something. While I haven't actively been to an event that required them, I have started reading some convention policies that are being updated to require them so that staff can ensure that no one is setting up a booth that's not supposed to be there, because that does happen on occasion. If there's a deserted booth, some people just try to snag one without paying for it. I personally got my banner from Vistaprint, but I know some people have things against Vistaprint, but it was cheap, affordable, and a pretty good quality in my opinion. Many conventions will not include any sort of table coverings for their events, and those that do tend to use very cheap, plasticky, gross looking tablecloths that aren't the best. So you should definitely invest into a nice tablecloth for your events. Your tablecloth should fit an 8-foot long table at max, as most convention tables will range from either 8 foot or 6 foot. Like the rest of your display, your tablecloth is another opportunity to be unique in comparison to your peers. As an example, let's say that someone told you that they will return to your table later in the day to shop. It's easier for them to find you if you are the only booth with a lime green tablecloth and a full of red tablecloths. This advice is especially helpful if your products blend in with those around you. There's just so much of, I'm looking for the booth with the popular series art can differentiate you from the rest. An additional bit of advice regarding tablecloths is to ensure that your tablecloth goes pretty close down to the floor. You don't really want it to drag on the ground, as that can cause a lot of grime and staining and grossness, but it is beneficial to have the underneath of your booth hidden from sight. Mostly it's just because it looks more professional, but if you're like me, you may find yourself utilizing the underneath of your table for storage purposes, and it's not really the business of the convention attendees to see what kind of mess you got going on down there. And another little tip, if you want to be courteous to any attendees or customers that might be suffering from any sort of mobility issues or disabilities, is to have a flipbook portfolio or catalog on your table as well. I know I just said that, have your things standing upright. Well, if someone's already at your table and they have, let's say they're a wheelchair user or they can't look up or something like that, it's good to have the flipbook so that they can still browse through your content without, struggling. Which, yes, you'll clean up that mess, but at that point, since it's actually actively helping someone, it's kind of worth it in my opinion. As important as it is for the outside of your booth to look in order to attract customers, the backside of your table should also be neat and orderly. I cannot tell you how often a disorganized neighbor has boxed me into my space and made it impossible for me to leave without asking them to move their stuff. Which of course means that I am boxed in forever, because I am really anxious and I don't really like interacting with my neighbors, but I also won't touch someone else's stuff because that's rude as hell. And sometimes a person's mess is just so severe that they can't even move it out of your way even if you asked, which leads you to needing to resort to extreme measures like crawling underneath the table to get free. And when this happens, usually everybody around that witnesses it has a nice little chuckle because they think it's something really quirky that happens at cons, ha ha ha. Well, I'm here to be the asshole and tell you that it's not funny in the slightest. Imagine if you're so disorganized, you can't move your stuff out of the way, and then you block someone in that requires medical attention, or has a mobility aid. Please just clean up your spaces. Not only will it help your neighbors if you have a clean backspace, but it can also help you in the long run as well. By having your space orderly, it can drastically improve your turnaround time when interacting with the customer. While it is unfortunately adding to your luggage when you're traveling, I recommend getting storage methods for your products in order to keep things organized. If you sell a lot of smaller items that can be placed in little baggies, like stickers for example, you can purchase some clips or bins to store them. Rolling carts with drawers can separate out different size prints or bags. I also tend to set up little foldy tables in the back spaces of my booths in order to minimize how much clutter is actually on the ground. You should also have some sort of trash bag or trash can at your booth so you don't have to leave and come back very frequently when you have to throw things away. When tabling at a convention, they usually don't offer any break periods, so when the hall is open, you're living at your table, eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner all at your booth while vending. Having a trash bag or can can also be used by your neighbors so everybody can stay neat and tidy and not have to leave very frequently. As the saying goes, time is money, which is why time management within the Artist Alley is extremely important. While you do have the occasional browser, many people coming to shop at your booth expect to be able to approach your table, ask for the product, pay for it, get it, and then leave. If you seem to be taking too long to service a customer, other people who may have been waiting their turn could possibly, and very frequently, will leave. This is usually because many people feel like they can just come back when you're a little less busy. However, those same people also tend to get caught up in the events of the rest of the convention and subsequently never return. It is very important to be able to balance any lines you get and appease people in a way that helps the lines move smoothly and transactions happen quickly. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not expected to be as fast as a cashier at an Aldi, but it helps be able to keep people patient enough to wait their turn for their product. One thing you could do to help your turnaround time is to have things prepped beforehand and to have your best-selling items within arm's reach. As an example, as a print artist, I tend to have my print sleeves right next to me and preloaded with my business cards and free stickers, so all I have to do is add the products that the customer had asked for before I hand it over to the customer. Due to the way that I have the back of my booth organized, usually, most of my products tend to be within arm's reach so either me or my assistant can easily grab and pass things to one another for very quick transactions. When you're currently servicing someone and another customer comes by to shop as well, a good thing to have is that before-mentioned catalog for the second person or group to flip through while they wait. This keeps them engaged with their table, and they are less likely to walk off before you're able to help them. As much as people wanting to buy things from you will leave when they think you're too busy to service them, you also have the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where attendees who have no interest in buying anything from you want to stand in front of your table, block access to you, and talk for half an hour. While usually this isn't done with any sort of malicious intent in mind, even if it can be a little annoying sometimes. These people tend to just generally be socially unaware and just want to make friends with someone who holds similar interests to them. Unfortunately, as we are working, artists tend to be the unwilling captive audiences to these people, kind of like your barista at Starbucks. Part of the appeasing people bit of this also tends to be chatting with convention attendees who don't intend to buy anything from you. However, sometimes you do have to politely put your foot down if they're taking up too much room and preventing other people from browsing or shopping. I usually deal with this in two ways. The first way is that my assistant will actually step around and lead our chatty new friends slightly away from the table while continuing the conversation enough not to upset them. This usually causes the person to realize that they were blocking the way, and they tend to end the conversation on their own and wish us luck. A+, great method. The second method, if the first one fails, is that I politely ask them to hold their thought while I greet the customer that wishes to purchase things. Usually the chatter tends to leave after this, since the method also breaks their focus enough to see that they are hindering a business. And sometimes, neither of these methods work, and the person kind of steps away, but they're still kind of blocking the way, and they continue to talk for another hour. And there's not much you can do about it. I always tend to feel kind of bad no matter the method when interrupting these kind of convention attendees, since I know that they tend to be pretty lonely people and they just want to make friends. But at the end of the day, if you're in the artist alley, you're there to work, and there's always a time and place to make friends. Bring a buddy, or bring a few. Having someone else with you at a convention can be essential for a lot of reasons. While I know many artists that table on their own, I personally would never recommend it, and I also will never do it again. Firstly, having a friend or a few friends to travel with you to a convention can help lessen the burden of your travel expenses by having them chip in for gas and hotel. Having a friend or two can also ensure that you're able to eat during the course of the convention, as it's risky to leave your table unattended for long stretches of time. They can also bring you things that you may have forgotten, like your phone charger or your hotel room key. Many artists at conventions will be more than willing to try to keep an eye out on your booths when you leave, but if they themselves become too busy to do so, it can lead to theft or damage of your products on your display. More importantly than just any random friend, I also recommend bringing someone that can be there to act as an assistant for you during the convention. I've mentioned before that many attendees won't come back to your table even if they say they will, so it's important to ensure that your booth is available to make sales during the entire time that the hall is open, even if you yourself is not there. While it is nice just to have someone there to watch over things while you run to the bathroom, it's even better if that person knows your business well enough to be able to make sales on your behalf. Having someone who's able to make sales on your behalf also means that they're able to help when you have multiple people at your table at once, all wanting to purchase things. Even if only one of us has immediate access to the cash box or card reader, your assistant can package orders and keep the customers engaged until the transactions are complete. A permanent extra body at your booth can also be a deterrent from the more creepy individuals sitting there and licking their lips at you, or, as I mentioned before, they can be there to distract people from blocking your booth from customers. Load in, set up, tear down, load out, those are all also incredibly easier with help. When you're at a convention, don't forget to be kind to those around you. Like I mentioned before, you shouldn't be encroaching on other people's areas, but you also shouldn't be disrupting your neighbors with noise either. If you decide to play music or other sound at your table, be sure to keep it at a reasonable volume. And also, just because this recently happened to me, if you decide to have any sort of lights on your setup, don't point them directly at your neighbor, because that's happened to me before, and it's blinded me for the weekend. You should never, ever do anything to actively sabotage your neighbor's business, like shouting at people to come over to you instead, or next, or whatever. Aggressively trying to push people to buy things from you is also frowned upon, as word of mouth is very powerful in such an enclosed setting. If you're a dick, you will get less sales. And I think that is the long list of generalized advice for vending at an anime convention for beginners. I hope you found something helpful within this video, and I appreciate your time in viewing. I would appreciate any likes you can give this video, and please subscribe for more stuff from me. My own shops and social media links can be found in the description, as well as website links to some of the companies I've mentioned in this video. This video is brought to you by Patreon, so thank you so much to Ippo, Chrome, and Nick Sanchez for subscribing. If you want to support me on Patreon, tier start as little as $1 a month. The link will also be in the description. Good luck with your next Artist Alley adventure. This is Minji, signing off. Until next time.
Swear I won't forget this, why do I regret this? In my mind reckless, thoughts are feeling endless. Sitting up, I'm breathless, anxiety's infectious. I feel so defenseless, betrayed and embarrassed. I hate being open, I hate being broken. I feel like an ocean, filled up with emotion. Anger ain't a potion, rub it on like lotion. I can feel it soaking, reopen, the scars have awoken. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. 'Cause I can't move on till I